I do think the Americans will come under pressure for doing less damage to the international economy and the price of oil and all of the side effects, which are going to grow and are going to affect economic fortunes and over the rest of this year.
Hello everyone, welcome to the show. I have a very, very special guest to bring you. She's none other than Pauline Neville-Jones, Conservative peer and former Minister for Security and Counter-Terrorism for the UK. Pauline, thank you so much for taking your precious time to be with us.
Good morning. It's very nice to talk to you again, Andrew.
I know you must be really busy, so let's get straight down to business. After what you've seen and what everyone's seen, really, of the conflict in the Middle East, what are your immediate concerns?
Oh, immediate concern is, how long is this going to go on, and how wide is this conflict going to get? The wider it gets, obviously, the more damage it's likely to do. I doubt that the United States thought that one of the things that the Iranians would do was to spread their activities so wide in the Gulf, and I'm sure that is creating a great deal of political anxiety, not to say drama, among the Gulf countries. They will want this conflict to end as soon as possible. It will greatly affect their economies and the security that people who are living there feel about staying in the Gulf. So I think they have a very strong interest in protecting the long-term viability of the economies and the societies that they're building. That's only one side effect, but I think there will be pressure exerted by those allies of the US, actually, to bring this to a close as soon as possible.
Now, Pauline, like you, I was also surprised by the spreading of this conflict. Had many calls across the Gulf where I've worked before, including many ex-colleagues in Dubai trying to get out. From your lens, given the spread of this conflict, does it look like it's going to be prolonged? Or do you think there is some sight in that it can be contained?
Well, I don't necessarily believe what the US president is telling us. Trump has been saying this could go on for weeks. I think for the reason that I've just stated, there will be pressure on the US to bring it to a close sooner than that, because weeks is going to be very telling indeed. And there are a very large number of people bottled up there in the Gulf states, who must be allowed to disperse, and they can't be expected to stay there for weeks and weeks. So I think there will be pressure to bring it to a close. I think the point of saying we can go on is to try to persuade the Iranians, that they will be defeated and that we have endless strength and we can go on until you're exhausted. How much effect that has on the Iranian leadership currently, I rather doubt that it has a great deal. I think they got their own agenda, and it'll be partly to do with securing the regime and at the same time keeping the population under control and conducting war. They've chosen conflict. That's quite clear. They could have gone down the road of continuing the negotiation. They're obviously angry, not in a mood to talk, and want, I think, attach more importance to continuing the regime and getting a grip on the country than they do to talking to the Americans, where they know they're going to be forced to make big concessions. So that's not, I think, on their agenda. So what will bring them to an end? My great fear is that, in fact, we should have a conflict peter out, actually without resolution. I don't think somehow this is going to end either in negotiation or in the triumph of democracy in Iran and the triumph of the people. I think we're going to end up, with this bout of fighting, which probably will be inconclusive, with the threat of further fighting, with the regime in power not talking. The Americans will withdraw, I think, a certain amount of their force, but probably obliged to stay in the region in considerable numbers militarily for an indefinite period, with the threat of continuing military activity. I haven't mentioned the Israelis, but they have their own agenda. I think Netanyahu, I think, is getting on with it as fast as he can. And that involves, obviously, and here, this is a shared agenda with the Americans, decapitating the regime, and indeed, ideally, obviously, bringing about, a liberation of the place. How much they really care about that, I don't know. I think they certainly want to see the regime weakened to the point at which they don't really represent a threat. And not a threat in particular to Israel. And that includes obviously dealing with Iran's allies in the area, the Houthis and the Hezbollah, where we see that is a replay of what we've seen before. So while I think this conflict will have long-term consequences, what I don't see at the moment is it actually sort of being a neat event which takes place between certain dates. I think we're going to end up with a very ragged, undefined, and inconclusive end to this particular round of fighting.
Pauline, certainly, just judging by the number of alerts and communication from governments, there is a real effort to get people out of the region. I'm on the security updates for Americans in the Middle East WhatsApp list. What is the mood music across the UK and its European allies? And you've got such an amazing role in that you're tapped in to the optics. Is there a sense that this is going to go on for 6 to 12 months, or is there a sense that somehow a resolution can be achieved within weeks?
I don't think people have any confidence in any of the analysis at the moment. And I think they're focusing, much more on day-to-day what's happening. I doubt that people have much confidence in the notion that somehow this will revert to a negotiating situation in the short term. So it's more likely to be, which party decides that the direct conflict's got to be at least simmered down, or if not brought to an end. And that could be either party, in my view. Because I do think the Americans will come under pressure for allowing people out and for doing less damage to the international economy and the price of oil and all of the side effects, which are going to grow and are going to affect economic fortunes and over the rest of this year. So I think that's it's not as if they're entirely pressure free. In Europe, I think we're having a demonstration to us of our relative weakness, lack of ability actually to have really any impact on anything. In particular, in London, what this shows up extremely starkly is that when the UK gets into a situation in which its interests and the safety of its people are involved, it doesn't have sufficient means actually to be able to defend them properly, hasn't got the military means to do so, and so has really only the alternative to shelter under the Americans and keep out of the conflict. And so we're left as a spectator.
I'm just intrigued by your comment. Is this why then, we've literally stayed out of this conflict so far?
Well, I think I'm inclined to believe the reason he gave. I mean, I think he thinks that this is an illegal activity. And there, of course, there is, a split in Whitehall about whether that's so important that, it trumps all other considerations, or whether you take the view that the Conservatives have, which is, that this is a really foul regime, jolly good to get rid of it. You're doing good things in doing that. This is partly a moral question, and the sort of the detail of precise terms of international law are in this instance less important. And we're a lot more likely to get a satisfactory result by getting on with the with the business in hand. The Conservatives have not said they actually think that we should have, we should be big party to military party to this conflict. What they have said is that we ought not to have denied the Americans the use of Fairford and Diego Garcia. I personally think that that was a political move that was mistaken. You don't deny your allies, and they are our allies, and we do depend on them. That kind of assistance, and as soon as it became clear that actually we were vulnerable, then the Prime Minister had to change his mind, which meant that he should have taken that decision at stage one. So, I think that are very unsatisfactory. We land in an unsatisfactory situation of not having done what we could have done, and being obliged now on the grounds of our weakness, to do what we can just to prevent worse happening, but without being able to make any really material contribution.
It's also fascinating that this theme, if you like, crops up a lot at the DSEI that happens in London once every 2 years. I'm always present to speak to the companies that are there, and as well as the politicians and the like. There is another thread too. I was wondering whether I could pick your brains on it, and the mood music surrounding spending on defence. Many companies agree, and they are encouraged by the fact that the UK government has pegged more money towards defence, but their main complaint is they're not seeing it spent on the boots on the ground.
Well, I mean, the government's got it has a plan which it hasn't divulged, which is the Defence Investment Plan, and which is still stuck in Whitehall because they can't agree, and they can't agree because at the moment, if they spend money on new activity, they have to cut some existing programs. It's the most terrible situation, and it's lack of funds, which is preventing us getting off the ground with something that the government itself acknowledges, which is that the manufacturing that would result from a revival of the defence industry in this country would make a material contribution to economic growth. They know that, and they've got themselves dug such a hole that they can't get this thing out through the door and operating. So we're waiting, literally for the plan to come forward and see what they're actually capable of funding. So this is all a question of priorities. But if you go on spending it on welfare, it's you've made your choice, and it's a choice that at the moment excludes being able to do what we want to do. I don't think the government's genuine in wanting to do it, but it's they can't order their priorities to get that right.
And Pauline, last but not least, we're at the beginning of March right now. What would you like to see that would indicate perhaps we are, when I say we, I mean those that are involved in the conflict in the Middle East, we are starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. What would you like to see, towards the next few weeks?
The next few weeks?
I know it's optimistic, but maybe we could be optimistic in this very pessimistic world at the moment.
Right. The outcome that we would all wish, I think, is end to the conflict and the Iranian people freed of this awful regime. But I'm rather pessimistic about that. I think it's going to. going to take longer. I don't myself believe, that these terrible men will go on governing a country like Iran forever. But I think it's probably going to take longer than this bout of fighting. And what is worrying in the meantime is that a lot of the rather good developments in the Gulf area will be set back. There's been good consolidation, growth of the economy, and development of those societies as well, in ways that are which are very good. And I think that all of that is strong enough actually to survive, but it's going to take a bit of a hammering, I think. And the side effects in the global economy, I think, will be negative. So that's one whole set of issues. The other set of issues is what's going to happen in the United States. We haven't talked about the American political system, but a lot hangs on this for Trump, and it'll obviously show up in the midterm elections. But the balance of the Constitution is now very, very cockeyed with the powers of Congress, particularly in relation to conflict and war, being ignored. So I think one of the side effects, which I think Trump is going to find, does actually preoccupy him, is how he justifies what he's doing at home. I don't suppose it'll be an argument about international law. It will be an argument about the powers, the division of powers in the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Pauline. I know you have to get on, but thank you again from us and all our viewers for giving us your precious time. Pauline, of course, is the former security minister and also the member of the House of Lords.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the chance to talk again.